What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again on behalf of Football Beyond the Stats and our Movement Play of the Week. This week for Week 6 of the 2022 National Football League season. And just like last week when we watched Lamar Jackson doing his thing under pressure and anxiety in a late game situation, we see the same thing from one of the NFL's most premier movers and one of the NFL's most premier quarterbacks in Josh Allen, quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, in a premier matchup versus what now is coming out to be a true rival in the league. Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes in these types of duels. Just like we saw last year in the playoffs, we're seeing again now in this situation, Josh Allen rise to the occasion to face a counterpart and a peer in Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. As you can see, the constraints on the game, 2 minutes to go. Let's dive into this respective play. I'm going to watch it, or we are going to watch it at 100% speed a couple times through as we typically do now. And you're going to see Josh Allen do his thing. And obviously I'll have a little personal anecdote when I see him do that, where it kind of brings some nightmares for me. And we'll get into that here in a bit as well. But Josh Allen, 2 minutes to go in the game, obviously behind by 3, Bills driving, the most premier game of Sunday. And what we see from Josh Allen is simply masterful. It's simply skillful. It's simply dexterous, not only in the course under this situation and these conditions, going from that hurdle play on Reed to here now, same thing in this situation, being able to exploit the constraints on the behavior. Let's look at it from the beginning once again here before we see it in slow motion. Like I said, you saw what he did right there to Snead. Now, Snead has gotten to be an awfully skillful defensive back in his own right, but he makes a miss in the open field before then going on to making Justin Reed look a little foolish with his typical Air Allen movement here. And we're seeing it right off the bat. That isn't actually all that new or novel, except in a repetition without repetition fashion, right? Where no two problems are the same, and so neither are any two solutions. We go from that play right into another couple plays later on this touchdown strike to Dawson Knox. And Dawson Knox obviously has gone through some adversity, if you know the story. If you don't, I definitely would recommend that you look it up and see how he lost his brother earlier this year. So all of this is really a feel-good story for anyone but Kansas City Chiefs fans, coaches, players, and anyone who was rooting for Mahomes and the Chiefs. But Josh Allen doing his thing, stepping up when it mattered most. So we're going to get into our 50% now and look at a few things on both plays, a few things that we here at Football Beyond the Stats put at the forefront, at the center of our movement skill form of life. And what I want to remind you all of is how context shapes content. I know we talk about it a lot here, but again, that context, that platform, that palette, if you will, for a player to go skillfully execute and behave on is under just completely different constraints when it's these situations, pressure and anxiety, even fatigue in these late game situations, where key performance inhibitors such as those could fix or freeze the degrees of freedom of players. But the more skillful, the more masterful, the more dexterous have the ability to coordinate, control, and organize movement solutions under these constraints. So degrees of freedom do not get constrained. Instead, degrees of freedom remain open, and one's movement system, perceptually, intentionally, and from a motor action standpoint, all remain open. And Josh Allen, now in this evolution and maturity that he has become at the quarterback position, is showing us that. Now, notice what I said before about some of the nuances, or if I didn't say it, I certainly should have. there are a bunch of nuances here that I don't want you to miss. The first one, and things, when I say nuances, not only that led to this phenomenon that was this movement behavior which emerged of Josh Allen's moment by moment movement solution and strategy, but also with what could be trained and what we could do to help facilitate it. The first thing that we're seeing with this pulling offensive lineman, I don't see enough people in real world practical situations setting up agility scenarios where it's a 2v1, 2 versus 1. So yourself and a teammate versus an opponent in a certain allotment of space. An easy thing, guys and gals, easy thing, movement skill acquisition coaches, to include more of. Okay. If you start to include more 2v1, because this is a very common scenario and situation for not only quarterbacks moving in space, whether it's in these rollout bootleg type of fashions, which are designed runs, or whether it's the running back position. 2v1, we really cannot train it too much. That would be the first thing that I would show you, because look at what Josh Allen does here when 77, his offensive lineman, gets out in space and begins pulling. He actually uses him to guide his own movement actions. I don't want you guys to miss this, okay? Because this is a nuance that without this, the hurdle doesn't even become a possibility. He never actually gets to the point to execute the hurdle. So look at him right here, right now, connecting to the information about the kinematics and the body actions, speed, positions, patterns of number 77 as 77 moves into space. He actually uses him to connect to and couple his movement behaviors in relation to. He also simultaneously, as we talked about last week with Lamar Jackson, and as we typically talk about here on our movement play of the week, one is not becoming sensitive and attuned to one specifying information source, but they are likely organizing their perceptual degrees of freedom around several information sources. Here in Josh Allen's case, look at where he's looking at this moment. Let me take you back one frame so we can see him look from right here. He's on 77, but at the same time, guys and gals, look at, okay, he's looking here, but likely also seeing this right here, number 38, Sneed, okay? Because that is a highly specifying information source that is going to channel how it is that he could or should behave. What affordances may be present. Remember, behavior affords behavior, okay? So now Josh Allen, again, in a Gibsonian perceptual skill fashion, perception gets wider and deeper, okay? He's looking to the space, but while he's looking to the space, he's also likely out of his periphery on his right-hand side, picking up 77 in the subtleties there, but also on the left-hand side, picking up and detecting information about Sneed. Where is Sneed in relation to me? How is Sneed moving? Okay. Hopefully this stuff is making some sense. And even if he's not picking up Sneed right now, what you're about to find is that in another frame or two, he's going to look directly to him. Look right there. Okay. He sees him. And now the more perceptually attuned, meaning the more sensitive to specifying information that an athlete becomes, the quicker and the more accurate that perceptual skill becomes as well. What do I mean by that? He's able to see where Sneed is, what the interpersonal distance may be between the two of them, what angle and speed this defender, because again, this is highly specifying information, that Sneed is moving at, and he should be able to do so. At least the more skillful behavior with the ball in their hands are able to do so in a quicker, reduced time frame. Okay. At least based on the scenario and situation, if they've experienced enough of it. Again, no two problems are the same. So you want to be able to detect these subtleties, these nuances, and the more skillful performers are capable of doing that. But again, to beat the dead horse here, Number 77 is also specifying. So what you're going to see from Allen here, and this is simply skillful and nifty, is watch him move into this space. You see him move to his left. Okay. He actually makes it appear as though he's going to cut to the inside, to the left side of 77. And what happens to 38 Sneed? If you missed it, let's see it again. I want you to watch it. Watch these constant changing states of organization. Behavior affords behavior. Watch Allen move inside, and Sneed sits and loads, stops his feet. Okay. And Allen knows now I have Sneed right where I want him. I have him on skates, number one, as you're about to find out, as Sneed hits the turf. But number two, I also put my offensive lineman in an optimal position to now cut him off if he were to be in him, and if he, being Sneed, were in a position where he could now move from this coiled position back to his left. So this is really highly layered stuff. Okay. So Josh Allen is like, if he actually does control himself in this space and is able to adapt accordingly and move back at this direction, he set him up for 77 to be able to handle this interaction. And then watch as Josh Allen, and again, I know the hurdle is going to be what everybody looks to, but this, guys and gals, is so layered, so nuanced, and so good. Okay. Look at him move back over now. Just obviously Sneed hits the ground and 77 doesn't have to do much of anything. You can see him kind of stumbling to try and regain his balance because he's like, shit, I thought I was going to have to block and interact with this guy, right? He doesn't have to. And he kind of stops like, whoa, shoot, you went down without me doing anything. All because my guy behind me, number 17, who me personally happened to snub last year off of the all movement team, which I should not have done so, makes Sneed look silly because of this layered stuff. Now, next interaction, remember, one local movement problem to the next. Simultaneous successive affordances or opportunities to act. Josh Allen looking maybe at least at the position of quarterback. It's not even an argument. The most skillful and dexterous mover in executing a hurdle move in the right situation. I mean, how many quarterbacks are out there hurdling dudes, right? There's really only one, and it's this guy right here, number 17, for the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen. Now, he did it the year before against Sneed, ironically enough, in the playoffs. And obviously, I think Sneed had some. I hate to pick on Sneed here because he actually is a very, very, very skillful and dexterous mover at the position. It just so happens that obviously he has a few issues with Josh Allen and his movement skill. And of course, when we're talking about the best of the best, ultimately guys are going to get got, right? I mean, this is hopefully intuitively obvious. And the same thing here when we talk about Justin Reed in the open field. Okay. Number 20, we see Josh Allen, and I said before that he would bring me nightmares. Why would he bring me nightmares? Well, the very first time that he did this on an NFL football field was back in 2018 against a guy that I partnered with. And that went viral in Anthony Barr, number 55, for the Minnesota Vikings at that point, now of the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, I feel bad for Anthony. I highlighted him a couple of weeks ago when I gave Saquon Barkley the movement play of the week, and he made Anthony look a little silly at one point. And now I have to call Anthony out again, mostly because he was the first guy to fall victim to Josh Allen in his hurdle in this way. But look at Allen now. This is an ownership, his coordination, his control of his perceptual, cognitive, and action degrees of freedom are all unfolding in a highly ownership type of fashion. He is setting up this movement problem not so he can find himself into the hurdle strategy right now, but he knows he has a blocker here who's now free because he didn't have to continue to interact with 38 back here, right? He has a blocker out in front in number 60 who is trying to reach Reed, but Reed, so Allen stays sensitive, but yet open and responsive. Reed is going to sneak past and through, as you're about to see. Okay. And Josh Allen is behaving in a way, in a very intentional way, not intentional in the fact that he needs to find himself into this hurdle strategy or solution, but intentional in a skilled intentionality by Kyverstein and Reifeld, where one is open and responsive to a wide range of potential opportunities. And then he is sensitive and attuned, he being Allen, is sensitive and attuned when he sees body position change this early, body position of a defender begin to change this early. He then goes to the behavior that is going to be most stable. And that hurdle move for him in the open space, as we find out here, obviously one has to have the action capabilities. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a bit as well. One has to have the action capabilities to even perceive this affordance. But it's obvious here at 4 yards away that as Josh Allen sees Justin Reed's number 20's movement position in center of gravity lower, you see this, he's getting lower and lower and lower. Allen, now in this very next step, and it probably is already happening at this point, he's choosing to respond in this hurdle type of way. Watch and observe. Hopefully, if I can hit the button, right? So we can see him already beginning to take off. But again, behavior affords behavior. Look at this position from Reed. Okay. He's low, he's coiled. Why is he low and coiled? Well, he has a guy in Josh Allen who's a huge dude at the quarterback position. He knows in order to even tackle him, he has to get low, he has to get coiled because the low man is going to win in this situation. But again, behavior affords behavior. And when Allen sees this position change, he resorts to that hurdle. Got to have the action capabilities in order to do it. But he does so, right? And Reed just barely catches his foot at that point. And obviously, Josh Allen, rightfully so, feeling himself as he comes to the ground. A couple of things here with this hurdle move, as we're about to see it from a number of other angles, and I'll let you go through it again while I'm kind of talking over it, maybe if my internet speed will operate in accordance with me. That I used to actually constrain players from this hurdle, that I thought it did, and I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years ago when I had some offensive players that were maybe a little bit more creative and dynamic in the open field who found these affordances. But obviously it started to become more popularized by certain players, not only quarterbacks, obviously in the Josh Allen, I said in 2018 now, which is 4 years ago, when he did so against Anthony Barr, a guy that I partnered with, but also well before that, 2014, 15, 16, 17, guys started to hurdle more. And it will admit that I actually started to get offensive skill players to try and go away from it. I felt as though it was risky and dangerous. But what I realized quickly is that if a player was able to perceive the opportunity, aka the affordance for doing so, that they should let it naturally flow and emerge. Remember, as Bruce Lee would say, that the creating an authentic and honest individual is more important than any style or system or any coach or facilitator from the outside looking in saying, don't do this or do that. It has to flow and come from the player in a water-like, adaptable fashion. We see some of those nuances yet again from Josh Allen in the open field that I pointed out earlier. Oops, I went a little too far here, but I don't think we can get too much of watching this. The one thing that I'll mention here about this hurdle move, and I'll maybe pause to say so here, is this is one thing when we look to facilitate it, because we certainly want it in someone's toolbox. Again, they have to have the action capabilities of doing so. But I think the action capabilities or the effectivities of working and finding that affordance comes from more than just, say, jumping ability, right? Because to perceive this opportunity to actually coordinate, control, and organize this movement solution, the behavior from another, and the reason why I paused it there is we can see Reed's how low and coiled Reed is, but that, guys and gals, remember, sets the affordance. So people might say, well, in order to get more skillful or to have the action capability of being able to hurdle someone in open space, well, maybe just do some hurdling type of actions. That's way easier said than done, because the stationary hurdle and having the ability to leap over one's couch or leap over some barrier I'm going to set on the field doesn't actually present the affordance, right? The affordance, or the opportunity, is alive. It's dynamic and it's emergent, and it takes place in the form of a player, an opposing player, an opposition player who's changing their position dynamically. That is what's going to set the affordance, because someone is coming in taller and lowering their center of gravity. You have to look at interpersonal distance. You have to look at speed. You have to look at where their center of gravity is changing to and where it's changing from. So it's not as simple as saying, like, hey, let's throw a hurdle out there. So this is a problem, if you will, that as a sport movement specialist, or as a person who's attempting to facilitate these types of more skillful or dexterous or abundant or creative actions, say such as in a form of a hurdle, I personally have found some struggles with, because it's also very hard to simulate. Most of the things that I do within my work with NFL players and those at the offensive skill positions can be represented. It can be simulated in the fact, like, someone getting more tuned and adaptable, say with a power cut, a crossover cut, a spin, even taking some contact, right? But one thing that you really have a hard time simulating in a practice or training or learning environment is a guy coming in low, because there is a certain inherent risk there that would take place. So I will admit, I'm still working through as to how to do this more efficaciously. I have stumbled upon a few ways, but I am not completely satisfied with it. But again, it goes way beyond, hey, let's set some hurdles out there and give the guy the action capabilities to jump over them. Certainly could be beneficial at some level, but it's not really the affordance. Remember, the affordances point both ways, to the performer and to the environment. Okay, I digress. I got on a long-winded rant there. Now let's look at, as he leaps over, let's look at what happens in this next play, right? As we're still in slow motion. So that obviously got him the first down. I think they had a first down play here that we're going to see coming up. Not exactly. I want to say that they move to here now. Okay. It gets on to 2nd and 12. So obviously they lost 2 yards. I don't actually even know how that happened or what unfolded there. But on this play now, this touchdown, this go-ahead touchdown to Dawson Knox, we see just a couple plays later, Josh Allen and now Dawson Knox get number 20 Reed again. And look at the things that I want to point out. I'm not going to focus as much time or energy ever here. We see right now Josh Allen is pointing. Okay. Talk about shared affordances, and talk about picking up in a perceptual fashion the affordances of one's teammate, the affordances of another individual, right? It's not just about one's own affordances or opportunities to act, right? It's not about just what one wants to do, especially at the quarterback position. These shared affordances and the attunement to them and allowing them to guide and control and shape your own movement behavior is a highly viable skill, and it will be the differentiating, or a differentiating factor rather, or quality for the more skillful NFL quarterbacks. Okay. And Josh Allen here, as he points and directs Dawson Knox on where to go and when to go there, it's channeling how it is that he's about to throw this ball in a highly skillful place for only his guy to get it. Admittingly, Justin Reed had good coverage on this play, but Josh Allen trying to direct his attention, his being Dawson Knox as to where to go based on where he's going to throw the football. And Reed right now is like, this is not a time of sunshine for me. This is a very gloomy place. And you can see this is pretty good coverage here in this case. And Josh Allen essentially throws him open. He throws it to a spot that only his guy can get. And here we're going to see the close up view of Josh Allen doing exactly that. And then he organizes and controls his own movement behaviors in accordance to what's unfolding in these shared affordances for two other individuals. Guys and gals, this is highly skillful stuff from one of the more skillful players at the quarterback position in all of the National Football League. And I think there's a number of different lessons that we can take from it. Okay. The first one being work more 2v1 type of interactions for quarterbacks, running backs, even tight ends and wide receivers. Okay. And you can change the space, the width, as well as the length of that workspace, where opponents are coming, how those opponents may be behaving, who those opponents are, to get the player, as well as changing the teammate, guys and gals. Like, it doesn't always have to be a big dude or a blocker in space. It could be a smaller individual. Like, all of these things, getting attuned and sensitive for ball carriers with these 2v1 situations, I think are a huge opportunity for more people to be working upon. Think about how to work the hurdles. Number two, how do we work upon those hurdle actions, and not even just the hurdle actions themselves, but more novel or creative movement actions, because they will be emergent based on scenarios and situations and the unfolding aliveness of the movement problem. And then finally, number three, looking at the shared affordances, being attuned to it, and giving players the opportunity to be in control and own their own movement behaviors based on what they're picking up in relation between a teammate and an opponent, and how they may need to be behaving, particularly at the quarterback position. Hopefully this one was as fun for you guys as it was fun for me. I hope you saw the same layers that I did. If you have thoughts and ideas, particularly about the hurdles and how to maybe facilitate those, again, beyond just saying, hey, throw the hurdle out there, because I can promise you that it isn't as simple as that. um, put those comments down in the comment section below. If you like this video, give me the thumbs up. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that whole jazz. I would love to see and hear from you all in regards to what you're liking, what's not, and what I need to become more clear about. But for week 6 of our movement play of the week of this 2022 National Football League season, this is Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi. I'll talk to you all in week 7, and I hope you all have a great week.